Hello, everybody, and welcome! This is the deck retrospective because Eric and I have finished the Blind Carcosa campaign, and it was a blast. It was a good time.
Loved it.
Yeah,
it was so much fun.
It was a fun one. Eric got to play 2 investigators because our good friend Dexter Drake unfortunately was locked in the asylum, but honestly, that sounds like a vacation compared to what happened to Leo and Harvey. So maybe Dexter was actually the winner of this campaign, right?
We actually all joined Dexter.
Yes, yeah.
Let's be real.
So, Eric, why don't you talk about your deck first, and then I will talk about my Harvey deck as well.
Sure. So, I mean, my deck started as a very standard, what I was told was a meat grinder Leo Anderson deck, which I kind of liked the idea of, and then I very quickly got off the rails on that and stopped doing it entirely. I'd be excited to play Leo Anderson in a way that actually, works for him really well. But I will say that I think my deck fell out of being good at technology and fell into just being a good Guardian fighter deck.
I can actually agree with that assessment because you kind of weren't doing Leo things, you were just doing generic Guardian things, which is not terrible because generic Guardian things can still be really fun. But it is kind of you're why am I here, right? Kind of gives you that.
Yeah, why am I Leo?
Why am I choosing to play Leo here? Because, I mean, you did do some meat grinding stuff, but it definitely fell in favor of, because, I mean, I did like the turns where you had your, treasure hunter and your, especially your hired muscle. You had them out for a few scenarios. But it never, I feel like, it's also the downside of only playing 4 scenarios and not starting from level 0 where you kind of know what you want. And also, just the general game knowledge, too, of, what should I be doing with my upgrades here.
Yeah.
But the enchant weapon is a fun path to go. Oh. And I think you did have fun with it. But I do agree that just, I don't think we saw, a lot of why Leo was Leo.
Yeah, and I mean, that's not a bad thing either, I think. In many ways, I had just also done the Mark Harrigan video with you.
Yep.
And so I'd gotten to learn a bunch
it was the how to support the Guardian class video.
How to support the Guardian class, yeah. That's right. And so I ended up building a lot around just the generic ideas of a Guardian, and surprisingly, it worked really, really well. Not to say I didn't enjoy having Leo be able to just pop in an ally for cheaper. I definitely used that quite a bit.
Yeah, but it was more just a way to save on economy and time than it was to do it.
I certainly didn't play to the character. And so with that in mind, the first cards I kind of want to talk about are the Priest of the Two Faiths. I think really good in a meat grindery deck.
Put one over here.
Not as solid in mine. So again, this was kind of a holdover from my meat grinder deck, and every time I had it in my hand after I switched out of being a meat grinder, it was a waste. I never wanted to play him. I never wanted to put him in favor, so that was a mistake on my part.
I think what also happened, too, you could have been more aggressive. Basically, if Tetsuo, as soon as Tetsuo is in play, Tetsuo's goal is to die.
Yeah.
Because then you can play this guy for free, and basically his goal is to die, right? Yeah. Or alternatively, say you had 2 in hand, you could play 1, get 3 blessed tokens in, get a curse token at the end of the round, or alternatively just discard them, or keep them during the Mythos phase, and then next turn you just drop the other one, replacing the first one, get 3 blessed tokens, and then get rid of them ASAP.
Absolutely, yeah. There's a lot of meat grinder tech I wasn't doing, and that's actually a really good point. I misplayed on that then.
But I mean, it is it's as I've been telling people, this was your 16th, this was your 12th to 16th game of ARKHAM. There is a lot of a lot of things that your brain is taking space in already to understanding what's going on. Adding extra stuff onto it is the goal right now should always be, am I having fun? And if the answer is yes, then that is a successful deck, I think.
Absolutely. So speaking of Tetsuo, the biggest reason I always had problems with Tetsuo was because every time I put Tetsuo out and I had something like the Priest of the Two Faiths in hand and I was like, I want Tetsuo to die, you'd be like, oh, yeah, because Tetsuo's here to soak for me. And just that kind of passive comment would lead me to be like, I have to keep him alive now, which was silly of me. I should have known I had other tech to play, and I even should have communicated with you, oh no, Tetsuo's going out, I'm grabbing more assets.
Yeah, I would have been when I say Tetsuo's here to soak for me, that's me comprehending the worst case scenario. Because this turn, I'm figuring it out this turn, but I think that is a fair point, because that does sound like me being Tetsuo's here to protect me. But no, it's Tetsuo's here to protect me for 1 turn.
Yeah.
Like, because everything changes each turn. I think that's fair, though. But I mean, like, he did do a good job of digging stuff out for you.
Oh, huge.
Yeah.
He did a huge amount of digging for me, actually, on a regular basis. He also had an interesting influence with my weakness, and this was just random luck. But almost every time Tetsuo died, I would draw my weaknesses and then get to shuffle them back in. And so, like, I had a lot of bad plays coming out that Tetsuo just kind of nullified
What a
in a
hero.
weird way. Yeah.
Yeah, working overtime.
But yeah, I don't think you did anything wrong with commenting on Tetsuo being protective.
Yeah.
I just think in my brain I was like, I guardian, I protect.
Yeah, I guardian, yeah.
Yeah. Guard dog. Didn't get to play it as much as I wanted just because of never really drawing it.
Yeah.
Loved this card.
Yeah, Guard Dog's great.
I love
I
Guard
love
Dog.
Guard Dog. It's an absolute banger from the core set.
Yeah.
It's like, he's just like top tier. Hell yeah.
Treasure Hunter, another person I should have been meat grindering with. Didn't, but I still actually got use out of him by having
think
one
you
extra
did.
book.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I think Hired Muscle is very similar for this one too. I think you did. I think you're, because like a meat grinder doesn't necessarily mean you need to change every turn, right?
Yeah.
The concept, like for me, a meat grinder is just you have cheap allies that you can play for free with his ability, and I think you did do that. Like, I think that was an accomplishment. For the goal for Hired Muscle. So I think that was really cool to see. I liked when you even kept him a few turns, and I was like, the plan's working, and it's
Yeah.
like that's great. What were your weapons of choice?
So my weapons I ended up taking were Survival Knife and Machete, and I was really sad that I didn't get a lot of chances to play with Machete. Just bad draw, always getting into Survival Knives first, always needing that enchantment right off the bat, and just going with that. I really wanted to play around Machete, but Survival Knife just ended up carrying it for me, and it was a good weapon. It's just a little slow.
Yeah. Can I ask a question? Because I would love to know what you think. Did you feel like you needed like 2 more weapons in your deck?
I think I did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you did a good job of finding your weapons. But this is actually something that I went through with a Leo deck where I played like these 2 weapons recently. And I was like, I think I needed like 2 more weapons in there. And I was curious if you thought the same thing, because that was something that actually very recently. And I was like, I think I needed some more juice. And it's good to know that I'm not the only one.
Well, and I kept being in this position where I had one good weapon, and I was like, okay, this is solid.
Yeah.
But I was just too slow on my action economy because I was relying on Survival Knife's retaliate back,
Yes.
especially in that last fight.
Yeah.
Having one Machete out would have been a huge
Yes.
game changer.
And I mean, like, yeah, because that was the thing too, right? Like, I had no problem. Like, you have a great, you have like the Prepared for the Worst. You have Tetsuo to like find your weapons. But I felt like I needed like a gun. Like, give me like a Mauser to kill things too.
Yeah.
And it would have been, so I think that.
Even with an ammo count that I'm not planning on replenishing, would have been fine.
Yeah, just like there's a rogue weapon that's called the Mauser, and it just has like 5 ammos on it, and it's for +2 damage. You can shoot it once a turn. I think it's just like more of that, or like an enchanted blade. Yeah, just I think though, because I think you had your weapons and you always had a weapon, but I think more weapon probably would have been helpful for the long run.
And I think more weapon would have also been helpful too for things like with my Prepared for the Worst, because I did get the upgraded Prepared for the Worst. And what I wanted in my dream world was to start with a weapon in hand and Prepare for the Worst and draw into a second weapon.
Yeah.
And I never quite got there. Prepare for the Worst saved me a bunch of games where I could have gone weaponless.
Yeah.
But it was never like that juice. It was never the sauce of what I wanted.
Yeah, I get you. And I think actually like 2 more weapons would have helped with that too.
Yeah.
This one though, you did hit every time and were able to play something, which was super sick.
I loved it.
You also had the enchant weapon, right? Which, how did that card make you? Was that a fun card?
Amazing! I kind of just want to keep playing with this from now on as like my base kit because it's so good.
It is. I love enchant weapon. Do you know what's great with enchant weapon?
What?
If you are playing like the Guardian, if Guardian Splash, you can get clues. You can actually put this on your fighter's weapon, and they use your brain for it. It doesn't need to be your own weapon. Whoa! Which is really cool.
That's
really cool.
Way too strong. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's a really fun card, and I think it's just like really good at what it does. It's a great card.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Holy cow, that's awesome.
All right. Your favorite card?
No, we're not going to touch on that yet. Vicious Blows upgraded.
Yeah.
Because when I want to swing big, the deck could swing big.
Yes.
I had a lot of resources, even with only one weapon enchanted to burn, to get to that place of doing the bonus damage. Amazing.
Yep.
Let Me Handle This just helped.
I mean, it's a great card, but it surprised me the times when you were just like, I'll solve this. You just do your thing. It was great. I felt very guardianed, so thank you for that.
Yeah, I love it. I loved being able to be like, oh, monsters? No. Overpower, I literally never got to play, I don't think. Or if I did, it was so minor, it didn't even come up. But it's a good card.
Which, I mean, I think is probably kind of good for Overpower if you don't need it, and it's just like there to replace itself.
Yeah.
You know?
Myriads. I got it off once, felt so good, and it never worked for me again, but I loved it.
Yeah, I mean, Easy Mark, at first, my initial days with Easy Mark, I was like, I need to play at least 2 for it to be worth it. For me now, just the gain 2 and draw card is worth it at 0.
That's such a bonus on just gaining a resource that, of course, it's worth it. But I just laughed because I got it the one time, I was like, feels good, and then every other time I was like, no.
Yeah.
Faustian Bargain, love this card.
Yeah, it's good money. It's good economy.
Like it. Yeah.
And is this the last card? Is this your favorite?
This is my favorite card. I cannot wait to play with this again.
Embezzled Treasure.
I embezzled treasure almost every scenario.
Yeah, you got 4, 5, and 5, right?
Yeah. I had so much
Here's
money.
Our thing to remind ourselves.
Yeah. I embezzled so much money in so many times.
Yeah.
And it was such a nice thing to be able to just do passively when my income wasn't helping me, because I built a relatively cheap Leo deck.
Yeah, and you had good economy. Like, I never felt like you were taking resources because you needed to play something. You were just taking resources because you, like, there was nothing else to do.
Yeah. And then I would just steal more shit. I was so excited to end Carcosa, having stolen at least one thing.
Unfortunately not. From what I'm hearing, though, is we got to get you on a big money deck sometime, because that's where embezzling treasure is.
I mean, I do love that embezzling of treasures.
All right, and I played Harvey, and my deck was, like, kind of busted at certain points.
It was actually fun to see a scenario where we lost.
Yes.
Yeah, and we lost fairly. Like, you got everything you wanted.
Yeah. So my whole thing was that I wanted to build around the Ancient Stones. I had a shrewd analysis because I did not care which one I rolled into. I got the Damage and the Horror, which were like the best 2 that you can get in this campaign, I think, because it allowed me to help Eric when Eric was Dexter. I didn't need to do it nearly as much with Leo. Leo was a lot better just like putting damage out, but Guardians are more consistent in that than Mystics are, so it's kind of easy to do. And the Horror one is obviously great in Carcosa, but alas, it was not enough to work with my secrets. I played a bunch of cards for the first time, actually. This was like one of my first time playing Ariadne's Twine in a deck, and it feels like I'm playing the card wrong, because it's just like that powerful.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it works as it did. I read it like 4 times every time I play it, but it's like I think that there's better things that decks can be doing with your resources, but if you're like a secret deck, that 1 resource a turn on certain things, like especially like a Mr. Rook, I think is very valuable. Speaking of my good friend Mr. Rook, this was like my first time playing with him in like a while too. Here he is, Mr. Rook. Yeah, he's awesome. I played him wrong for Echoes of the Past because I'm an idiot and I played him like Mandy, but Harvey draws after the search. So Mandy, she can choose an additional card during a search. So she gets 2 from Mr. Rook, which is very powerful.
Wow.
Harvey, he just draws an additional card after, but I was doing the Mandy way for that scenario. Card's great, though, and I'm not surprised that he was tabooed, to be a bit more fair. Because, like, card's really good, and when you have, like, an unlimited number of secrets and you can use them every turn. I mean, I also think that's what got us in the final scenario was I lost my Mr. Rook.
Yeah.
If I had him out, I would have been able to grab what I wanted when I wanted, right? And also would have been able to kill enemies quicker because I didn't have any free draw either. Another card I played for the first time was this Truth from Fiction, which just puts a boatload of secrets on your assets that can hold secrets, and it was great. I always felt like it was like there wasn't time where I wanted to play it, but I think that becomes more the fact that in 2-player, pressure's a lot higher.
Yeah.
3 or 4-player, you would have had a lot more time to breathe and do this. And that was kind of like the idea of the deck. And then I just have like Economy, Burning the Midnight Oil, love the card, just resources for investigating. Cryptic Writings, which I think triggered once, but you gain resources, or 4 if you have 10 or more cards in hand, and after you draw it during your turn, you get to play it. Never happened. Never happened. My pet skill, Eureka. I just love turning this into another card. It's just something I like doing. I had Perceptions. I probably should have gone to 2 level 2 versions earlier, but instead I bought like a bunch of one-ofs that interest me, which I actually don't know where they freaking are. They have vanished. Oh, they're in this pile, which we'll get to. The last of my 2-ofs, we got Bizarre Diagnosis, which is like the MVP in Harvey Walters. Because Harvey Walters' weakness can deal you a lot of damage, and this is an easy way to just like nullify it. So if you're playing a Harvey Walters deck and you do the Versatile, which allows you to add a level 0 card from any class to your deck building, but you get +5 deck size. And it costs 2 experience. A lot of people do it with a card called Deny Existence, which allows you to prevent, cancel, or ignore wounds or damage from a treachery card, yada, yada, yada. And weaknesses become treacheries when you draw them. So the idea is that you play Versatile, get a Deny Existence, and Harvey, don't just get this. This will do the job for you. That's all you need. Grim Memoir. I should have played it more. It's a good card. It draws cards, gives you more book. But I think I've also probably, this could have been something else. But I think it did have moments where it shined, but it could have been better. I like the card. It has secrets, but it could have been something else in retrospect. And then Deduction is more clues. And more clues is great. Now my one-ofs. This was a 2-of at first. This was to help Eric in the earlier games, but I had 1 left by the end. I don't like it that much, but it was necessary for the opening part of the campaign. We had an Eidetic Memory, which allows me to play an insight card for my discard pile. Insights are very good, and I have a lot of good insights in my deck. Like this card, where I get to drop to my hand size, which is usually 10. And then it's just good.
Yeah.
I did it once, and it was awesome. I actually really like the smaller version. The level lower, I think it's level 1, where you can shuffle any number of cards from your hand into your deck, then you draw that many cards. You basically get to like reset your hand. It's That's very wild. Good. This one's a little bit over the top and not necessary, but the level 1 version I was actually very pleased with. The World, I had it in my opening hand both games, and it did nothing. In Black Star's Rise, I'm not a big hand deck. I put it in to try it, and I just never got there because I'm too busy like playing my cards. And in Dim Carcosa, I got Eden on like turn 2. Empirical Hypothesis also could have just been something else. I never actually used it. The Analysis was actually here for protection to get my Ancient Stone studied. It's a great tech. If you're playing Ancient Stone, to study it, to identify it, I highly recommend Analysis on that. And then I had a Forewarned, which is just Mythos protection that never triggered, and then the Necronomicon, because I was like, why not? And it was fine. I wasn't trying to break it. Like, you can break this card wide open. I wasn't trying to do that. I was just like, I want to play with it, and I did. And it was fine. It was very powerful, but I think the MVPs in this deck were definitely the Ancient Stones of crushing power.
I was really sad that a crazy old man with 2 big rocks wasn't able to save the world.
No, he was not. The rocks just weren't big enough. So what I'm hearing is that I got to get bigger stones.
You need to build a Harvey deck that's even more rocks.
Even more rocks. I can do it. All right, well, that was awesome. When Eric and I play Forgotten Age coming up soon, we're going to do something a bit different because everyone's requested. It's like, what were your decks? So we're actually going to do... So if it's what's the opposite of a retrospective? An introspective?
No, a prespective.
A prespective. All right. What's an introspective?
That's a protospective.
So protospective?
Introspective is you thinking about yourself.
But what if I want to like think about myself in the middle of something?
Perspective.
All right. So we got prospective, protospective, perspective, introspective, retrospective. So we're gonna do a protospective. We're gonna look at it from the beginning. We're gonna actually do either we're gonna do something. You can let us know because this is gonna be for a while. I want to always get like a head start on this. So would you rather see us building the decks on camera together, or just us talking about our decks once we build them? We'll figure it out. But it's gonna be fun because I believe you're playing Luke.
Yes.
And I'm playing Keimani. So it's gonna be a good time. Thanks for watching, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this. And if you have not watched our... Get out of here. If you have not watched our Dim Carcosa yet, sorry for the spoilers, but, you know.
It happened.
Two old men, Leo and Harvey, unfortunately, just go crazy. Thanks for watching, everybody. And as always, a GG's.